thank you for being here and for, obviously, for inviting me over. In the next 30 minutes, I'll try to give you information about transformation. It's a little strange because I should be transforming you, which will be the task of Jonathan, the next one. And I will try to give you an overview about what's happening in the world in the context of education and the context of what seems to be the future of education, and we are in a way, the missing link, because the education of today is the education of the past, and if there is an education of the future, we are the link between the two. We are in the transition period. And different words have been around for quite some time in the field of education. You've heard some of those words already in this conference, in last year's conference, and in other occasions. And each one has a meaning, and each one is similar but different. So just as a short recall, there's the word holistic, which suggests that there is a way to be more whole, to look at the whole child, to look at the whole school, to give an education which is bigger and larger and deeper than linear one. There's integrative, which is integrating different pieces, like the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. The mind and the heart and the hand will be an integrative approach. Transformative is what the students should experience, and hopefully what the teacher should experience as they teach, as they collaborate, as they integrate something which is more holistic. So here, transformative is assuming or suggesting that the student can obviously transform something about the student, not his brain, his personality, his attitude, his mind-body entity can change in a positive way. Transformation is usually meant in a positive way. And then what we are here to explore and to those will be just notes. Each note can be expanded to a whole chapter. We are trying to explore in this conference, not only in this presentation, what kind of operating system can we develop? It doesn't exist yet. What kind of operating system can we develop that will enhance knowledge, because knowledge is important. I'm now giving you knowledge. It's not, let's get rid of knowledge. Knowledge is important, but in education in typical education around the world, in Australia, in Canada, in the United States, in England, in Thailand, in Israel, it's knowledge based almost only. Everything else is by chance. So how to enhance knowledge and applied knowledge that should be useful, and how to cultivate competencies like compassion competencies, leadership competencies, how to enhance disposition, the tendency to act for and to save the planet, ecological projects that are existing in Run. There's a tendency of a whole school. How to give students skills, not only knowledge, almost like not only mathematical skills and language skills, but human skills, and how to do something that will resonate with values or remind the student and the teacher of deeper values that we are born with. And they may be forgotten or unfed, and to feed those yearning for caring, for being together, for feeling joy together, etc., and to promote mind-body health, which seems to be a very important topic, usually not existing in most schools in the world, and to optimize learning potential. There is a transition happening. This is just to remind us or to inform us. Transitioning is happening since about the 60s, 70s, in many different fields, not only in education. In physics, We have quantum physics, which we didn't exist before. In medicine, we have holistic medicine, alternative and complementary and integrative medicine. In psychotherapy or psychology, we used to have only pathogenic-based clinical psychology, and now we have positive psychology, humanistic psychology, mind-body psychotherapies, and more. And we are here back to the field of education. Most of what we see today has been envisioned by an American woman, Marilyn Ferguson. Her book came up in the 80s, 1980. I was in the States at the time, 82 to 86, and I still remember reading it, and it was like a prophecy. What seems to happen? And most of what she wrote, in a way, she was right. She died in 2008, I think. And we also can remember what is the typical way schools function around the world, what we call today contemporary education, conventional education. If I'll take the name conventional medicine, so we can say there is a conventional medicine. And most of conventional medicine, at least in the world, it's in a concrete block, which look like a hospital or sometimes even a prison, just the vision. And the name is a factory model because it's to produce something, to produce functional human beings that will be good citizens and function in society. It's not a bad idea, but it's not a valuable enough idea. There's age separation, so if we do age separation here, we will maybe figure out what is the age here, and some people will have to go to a different room, but obviously in life there is no age separation, almost only in schools. And it's 45 minutes and then a break in most schools, 45 minutes and then an intermission in most schools, 45 minutes and then a break in most schools, and life doesn't work that way. When I'm married and I argue with my wife, it's not 45 minutes and then we have a break. It takes on for a few days usually. In the school, children in the kindergarten, in most countries in the world, children in kindergarten are running around, chasing around, playing around, moving. And suddenly they come to, in Hebrew it's Kita Aleph, age 6, and they have to sit for 6 hours a day by day, day by day, day by day. That's, if I think about it, I didn't figure it, but now when I think about it, my mind is saying it's crazy. What happened to life? Where's the movement? It's all about sitting and listening and reading and writing, and then we have to memorize. That's how I became a physician in the 80s. That's how I became an engineer in the 70s. A lot of information via sitting, squeezing the information, feeding the information, and then memorizing it in order to pass the test. It's all about, obviously, transmission of knowledge, and there's different arguments how much of this knowledge is applied. Different numbers are being thrown. Definitely not 50% of the knowledge. Less than 50% of the knowledge is usually applied. I don't know what's the up-to-date percent. And the success is by measurements. It's very similar to medicine. In medicine, it's if my cholesterol and blood pressure and sugar level are okay, I'm healthy. That's not real health in the real way. So in school, okay, if we pass the test, we are licensed to try to be accepted to the next level, to higher education. Again, that's not as deep as it could be. What's missing is usually life. And that word was mentioned in the opening speech. There are some overlaps between my talk and the previous talk that we've had as the opening speech. And the more something is being repeated, for me it means it's like a highlight. There's even more truth in it than something unrepeatedly. So life is missing. Life about choice making. Do we teach about that? Or role taking. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a student, I'm a teacher, just to count a few of my roles, and taking my dog out every day. We have roles, and we have about reflection, about relating, about communicating, about collaborating. Nothing of that is being taught at school unless it's in the schoolyard by chance. We have nice quotes. I like quotes. So I have a few quotes here, and quotes, sometimes if they repeat themselves, again, there is a meaning. Those are two quotes. Never mind who said it, you can Google. Education is not filling of a pail. A pail is like a bucket, like to carry water to wash the floor. Education is not about filling of a pail, obviously with water, but it's lighting of a fire. And the second one, different person. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. And we can see the repetitiveness, something about fire. Fire represents passion, represents emotion, represents warmth, the sun. With no sun, we cannot grow plants. Those are in plastic, but never mind. And we need life, we need fire to cook the food. There's no fire in school. There's too much water. And he was one of my best authors. When I was a child, I really liked to read. I read many, many books in Hebrew. And Isaac Asimov, in the time of my childhood, he's an American, was one of my favorite science fiction authors. And he was smart enough not only to write science fiction, and I think his quote here makes a lot of sense in the context of this conference and what we'll hear about. There's a very sad aspect about life right now, is science gathers a lot of knowledge, but society gathers no wisdom. If we look at the world today, unfortunately he's right. And so we can look back just quickly, what is education? What is education supposed to be? What it could be, what it should be. And we can go back in history. This is not long time ago history. Jaddu Krishnamurti, the Indian philosopher that lived in Britain as well, and he suggests that education should help the individual to be mature and free. There's something about maturity and freedom. And it's something about to flower greatly. It's like a flower, like a lotus flower opening from something more closed and enclosed, something open that shows its beauty. This is the flower metaphor. And the highest function of education is to bring about integrated individual, and this word integrated, integration, I will repeat it again and again, most probably because I'm attached to the integration principle. Or we can go to the 70s in the United States. Holistic education was quite more or less beginning in the context of modern education in the United States in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, and the term was given, holistic education. In the parallel in medicine, there was the term holistic medicine. They didn't know each other. Holistic educators, holistic physicians, as far as I know, they did not know each other, and they spoke about very similar domains. And holistic education tried to remind us or to suggest to us, or food for thought, education should be understood as the art, so it's an art, not only a science. It's the art of cultivating, integrating moral, emotional, physical, psychological, spiritual, and actually mental is even missing here. They forgot it, I think, but we can debate about that. Developing different aspects, holistic aspects in the child. And obviously the teacher, to do that, needs to know what he's doing, what she's doing in order to do that. Or we can go to UNESCO, and UNESCO already in 1996 said education should relate. This is like a checklist. You can check education. How much is it relating to learning to know? In most education, 100%. Unfortunately, only 25% of the knowledge is useful in the world, is applied in the world. Education should be about learning to know, but it's about learning to do. How much? I'm not sure what did I learn to do in school. I learned to drive, but that's out of school. I learned to swim out of school. Later on in life, I learned quite a few things, but not much in school, learning to do. I learned to read and write. Yes, that's it. In order to be examined, I had to do it. Learning to be. That's all about being. For me, nothing I learned about being in school. And to live together, I think I learned nothing in school. School cultivated zero in me in relationship to living together, understanding someone else, appreciating interdependence, knowing about differences, knowing how to fight and then how to resolve fights, and our being, to the developing personality, autonomy, personal competencies. Or we can go to the Mind and Life. It's an organization that was created a while ago between the current Dalai Lama and American scientists. And a whole organization called the Mind and Life Institute came up, and there was a conference in Washington, D.C. This was 10 years ago, as you can see, in 2009. And they said, education, those are the questions that we should ask in order to find some answers about what education should be and could be. How to prepare children of today for the world of tomorrow, because the world of tomorrow depends on the children of today. They will be the adults of the future. They will destroy or build or create the world of the future. How can we train the mind and the heart, something not unknown to Buddhist principles? How can we assist the learner to work with difficult emotions, because they do exist in life. We cannot run away from difficult emotions, as far as I know. And how to develop positive qualities of the heart, and how to give children shields, because they will have to cope with challenges, and how to give them a compass, so they know to navigate, and they'll know what's their direction, or maybe they'll know how to change to this direction, and they will be resilient to do something and to reach the goal. Elliot Eisner, which I think the following speaker, Jonathan, will also may mention, because he knew him, they knew each other, said the aim of education is to be an art. And it's not to create someone, but it's to help someone to create himself. So in that context, we need to, school should be teaching students to be artists and to be creator of their own life, their own path, their own character, their own learning. They should be very artistic in this life creation project. So Ken Robinson, a famous British author, he became Sir Ken Robinson, said it also nicely and simply: the aim of education to enable students to understand the world in them, the world around them, and to become fulfilled individual. He wasn't Buddhist, but the word keep being repeated. There's something about fulfillment, about growth, about something higher or deeper that schools need to address. And then to be active and compassionate citizen, engaged Buddhist if you want, and also empathic, compassionate person. And the challenge is, he said, it's to fix the system, and it's not to create another transformation, it's not to create another reform, but it's almost, he said, we have to start from scratch. We have to transform the whole system. Quite wild idea. And if you see here is to understand the world around them and the world inside them, and we need to address the world for a minute, and again this was mentioned before. The world is full of what's being called VUCA. It's vulnerability. We are vulnerable too, but the world is vulnerable. Uncertainty, we are in uncertainty, but the world is becoming almost like, there's more and more uncertainty in the uncertainty barometer in the world. More complexity and more ambiguity. It's like things are not as clear. It's kind of a fuzzy logic, and we are almost like in a fog. How can we change? It's a big question. Can we change? Big question. With all these forces rolling around. OECD that was mentioned before as a big organization. This organization in the past was on top of economical development, and suddenly this organization, originally European, now international, became concerned not as much about economical development, but about well-being and education for the sake of the learner and the sake of future society and the sake of the planet, as we'll see in a minute. And they say we have big challenges. We have to give children some awareness to the challenges and something that will make them more able to relate to these challenges and help these challenges not to overcome, but to do something about it. Environmental challenges, economical challenges, social challenges, and technological challenges. And each school should relate to that. And they envisioned, the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, about a year ago, they came up with the Bible of future education in a way, or with a very defined definition. And many countries are taking this definition very seriously because the definition is not the school of today, it's the school of the future. And the definition is saying something like education should help every learner develop as a whole person. And they reached it not via holistic education, they reached it via analysis, cold-blooded analysis of what's happening and what's needed, what's missing, what needs to be added. Education should develop the learner as a whole person, allow the learner to fulfill his own potential. For that, the learning should make the learner understand what is his unique individual potential. Potential for what? Help shape a shared future built on the well-being of individuals, community, and the planet. Very non-self-centered, very caring for the learner, the teacher, communities, societies, and the planet. And this is an organization that was in the past interested in money, in a way, only. Education should equip learners with agency, sense of purpose, so we have the value added to it. Competencies added to it, in order to shape their own life and contribute to the life of others. And the more I see, the more I look, the more I observe in those different principles, I see different shifts. We'll see them in a minute, but before we go into the shift, we need to remember we are speaking about a child. And we are speaking about the future of the world. The future of the child, he should be a very, very, very responsible adult as much as possible, and the future of the world, dependent on many of those that we now see as children. So we have two patients. This is doctor office. One is we are the physicians with the children, the psychotherapists of the children, the teachers of the children, the coaches of the children, for them to be as compassionate, active, responsible, collaborative, intuitive, creative adults for the future of the world. And if there is a child, this is what's happening inside the child. Inside each child is the wish to experience positive experiences. We are born with that. And that never dies. We still want to experience positive experiences. The more the better. Every child wants to feel well. We are the same. It's not to be well on a number-wise, it's to feel well. And every child wants to have some mastery, sense of competency. That's how we learn to walk, that's how we learn to talk. Each child needs social interaction, good social interaction, not bullying and being alone and being laughed at, etc. And each child, she suggests, Karen Ulnes from the States, craves imagination, needs imagination almost like food. This is more food for the soul. Each child needs positive experience, said another big study of Europe and Middle East. Each child needs a significant adult, which is what we are supposed to fulfill. We are supposed to be, as much as we can, positive adults, as parents, as teachers, as therapists, as adults, when we see a child, when we speak to a child, when we interact with a child. each child wants to know, consciously or not, that he or she has value. And again, the interconnectedness as a requirement in almost. And also from the States, suggests in her books called The Soul of Education, the similar name to the international initiative that I've created. And Rachel this is the name of the book, The Soul of Education, is suggesting that in every child there are, you can see overlap, but this is more, another drives, another needs. Some of them repetitively seen, need for deep connection, connection to the nature, connection to oneself, connection to adults, connection to animal kingdom. Longing for silence, this is usually in the West extremely lacking. To give the child a chance to be quiet without the child becoming anxious and restless. It's a skill. The search for meaning and purpose, hunger for joy and delight, the need to discover and create, the need to transcend something, to find something which is beyond the normal, beyond the average, beyond the simple daily life, and some rituals of initiation. And the last piece, almost the last piece, is in this development. I'm very quickly running through what's developing, what's happening in the world, in today's world. And this is the one before the last, is social emotional learning, which is an understanding that schools can be and should be almost the best place. We have 12 years from age 6, forget kindergarten, age 6 to age 18 in most countries. We have 12 years. It's a lot of time, 5 days a week, year by year, 12 years to develop, to give, to teach, to cultivate, to promote social emotional learning, to make the child more able to know, to be self-aware, to manage oneself, self-leadership, including managing difficult emotion, to be aware of the social circumstance, to navigate in different relationship skills, and to make the right decision on the better decisions, or the more positive decisions from the long term, for the long run. And schools as a place to do that. Just as we teach 1 + 1 is 2, square 2 is 4, square 3 is 9, just as we teach that, we should teach that according to that. And this, again, you may have seen it just a few hours ago. This is the last OECD map. If you recall the Mind and Life Society, they said we need to give children shields and compass. And the compass principle keeps repeating itself. No direction, but forget to know the direction. What this represents is a new chart, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4. In the past we had knowledge only. Suddenly schools should have knowledge, competency, skills, values, and something else. The pie chart is different. The school pie chart is changing. The curriculum need to change. The culture need to change. The teacher may need to change in order to supply 5 different pieces in the pie, not knowledge only. Time-wise, what's the story? Time out already. I didn't see you.
I was at the back.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we can think about all that. I gave you a brief introduction, and it's all about transformation. It's all about education transforming itself in order to transform the child and to make this child as an adult as likely as possible to transform something positively, to carry the flame on. And transformation seems like a big word for me. I know how difficult it is to make transformation happen. And when my rational mind is thinking about transformation, who am I? I'm nothing. Look at Bangkok, see how many people. Look at New York, it's like, what can we do? Zero, almost. So this is the slide just to remind me that transformation happens anyway, because this is me, 1980. As you can see, it's not the same person. Transformation is inevitable. What we can do is to contribute positively to the transformation happening, and we can do as much as we can. This is to remind us that we can do as much as we can. This is from Mother Teresa. And she reminds us we cannot, all of us, do great things. All of us can do small things with great love. Thank you very much.